Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and there's something special about crawling under a nice big flannel quilt. Let's cover some tips and techniques, all while making a nice big flannel quilt. The flannel I'm going to use today is called Primo, and it is from Marcus Fabrics. It has a great selection. You can get some checks, some plaids, some stripes, and even some that read a little bit like a solid. And they look great from both sides, so you really don't have to worry about what side is up. It's definitely recommended that you wash your flannel first. That will give you no surprises as you're working with the fabric, and at the end when you need to wash it, you have no worries. You can wash it in a wash machine, or you can wash it by hand. If you're going to put it in the wash machine, just put it under the gentlest cycle that you have. I take each piece one at a time and I put it in the dryer until it's almost dry. Not bone dry, but still a little bit of a damp feeling. When it comes out of the dryer, I'm going to take it and fold it. And it won't matter what direction you're folding it in. You're just going to fold it. I'll take the bottom piece and I'll smooth it out with my hands so that I'm smoothing out any of the wrinkles. And with that damp, it's going to be able to smooth very easily. Fold the fabric in half and smooth the top piece. And you're going to be able to just fix it as you go along, smoothing it out. If you have checks or plaids, you're going to be able to take one of the lines and use that as a fold line and smooth it out going in that direction. By doing this, you're using your hands as an iron. And I can take this and I can move the fabric until I have my lines straightened up. And they don't have to be exact. And I'm just going to keep smoothing it until the fabric looks nice and flat. Then I'm going to let it dry right in this position. It's going to be very easy then when this has been dried to take it to the iron and press it. And I do like to starch it. I'm going to starch both sides. So I'll put some spray starch on it and I leave it for a second so that the spray starch will actually soak into the fibers. Because with the flannel you have this soft brushed fabric on the top, so it'll take a little bit for that starch to go inside. Then from there I'm going to be able to press it. And I'm not doing a round motion because I want to keep my lines as straight as I can. And I'm just going to press it, and now I'm ready to cut it. Flannel does have a little bit more stretch to it than a regular cotton fabric. And that can work to your advantage. You're going to be able to give it a little tug and put it where you're going to want it. I like to start with a nice sharp blade. It's very important because the fabric is so soft, it's almost cushiony. So a nice sharp blade is going to get through those layers and not leave you anything attached. I do cut one piece of fabric at a time. I'm going to make this free pattern from Marcus. And you get to use 12 different flannels to make this entire quilt. And it is a big quilt. It is 88 by 94. So I'm starting with 12 different 3/4 cut pieces. Each block is the same and it consists of 4 different pieces. They give you the cutting directions right along the back. Now I've added where my selvages are going to be. These edges are my 45-inch mark. So they will give you how to cut them out. I'm going to fold my fabric and cut it as it's folded in half. So you're going to need to cut the fabric in rows. To help me cut, I'm going to use a couple of different rulers, but you can use whatever you have. I have 2 long rulers and a square ruler. By using 2 long rulers, I'm not going to have to flip the fabric from one side to another. To start with, I need to straighten off one edge. Depends if you're left-handed or right-handed on what you're going to want to do. To straighten up the edge, I'm going to take the first long ruler and I'm going to place the fabric straight along one of the markings on the ruler. I'm going to peek underneath to make sure that all of the edges I'm going to be able to trim off because I don't want a piece underneath this ruler. Now because I'm right-handed, it's going to be difficult for me to cut on this side. So I'm going to use a secondary ruler. Without moving this ruler, I'm going to place the second ruler right on top. I've kept my line straight, and I'm going to hold that one ruler. I could just slide this out of the way. Now I can use this ruler as a guide. So I have my first edge straightened up. The first strip is going to be cut at 10 inches. The ruler is 8.5 inches, so I will be able to add the extra on the secondary ruler. I won't have to worry about holding this ruler on this edge because it's just for measurement, but I'm going to be able to hold this one. And I'm going to cut my first 10-inch strip. I want to move the fabric as little as possible, so I'm going to just take that and move that out of the way, and I'm going to cut the pieces that I need right from this very first piece. I'm going to start and make 4 different piles. Each of my fabrics, I'm going to have 3 of the same piece. So I'm going to have 3 10 by 10s, 3 4 by 10s. I'm going to put those away and cut my next strip. By not moving this fabric, I've already have that straight line. I can straighten the edges up with the 2 rulers if I want, or if I'm straight, I'm going to be able to just continue cutting. The next strip you're cutting is 4 inches. Fold my main body of fabric out of the way, and I can cut the pieces that I need from these strips. I would love using more than one ruler. That way I don't have to move the fabric as much. And the less I can move my fabric, the better it is. It saves me a lot of time. And because I'm not going to be using the leftover for the body of the quilt, I'm going to move that and keep it aside. Now I can cut my 3 pieces right from this piece. Cut all 12 fabrics in the same way. Directions are going to be right here for you to refer back to. When all 12 pieces have been cut, I have beautiful big stacks of fabric. I have the 10-inch squares, the 4 by 10 inches, 7 by 13.5, the 2.5 by 16.5. We're going to sew these back together, but we don't want to sew them matching. We want to mix up the fabrics. So you can just restack all of the fabrics so they're not going to match. The 10-inch squares and the 4 by 10-inch squares need to be sewn together. I'm going to take these 2 piles right to the machine, and I'm going to sew them together. Right sides together and stitch a 1/4 inch. I always like to test my machine before I start sewing. I want to test my machine to make sure that I'm not stretching it or I'm not pulling it in. I'm going to take 2 pieces of flannel and check that measurement. This happens to be 7 inches. Now I'm going to do a row of stitching. And you can make your stitches a little bit bigger than you would normally have. If you have a 2.5, you can go up to a 3. Stitch the 1/4 inch and then come back and remeasure. So I've done my 1/4 inch seam allowance and I've not stretched it at all. So I know that my machine is great and ready to go. Now I can sew all of these pieces together. The first 2 units are all sewn together. I've pressed the seams open and flat. The next pieces are going to be sewn on the top. This is the 7-inch by 13.5. When you have the 3 units together, press the seams open and flat. This is going to keep these areas nice and flat when you go to quilt it. Now you're going to be able to sew this last section onto the edge and just shuffle them so that none of them are matching. When all the pieces are sewn together, you have a 16.5 inch by a 15.5 inch, and you're going to be able to sew them together in rows. However, if you'd like, you could square them up so they could be 15.5 inch squares. The pattern has you sewing them together in rows. So one long piece is going to be continuous as you go around. So you can either sew them together or square them up. And to change up the pattern just slightly, I'm going to square them up. I've stitched them together in rows of 6. So I have 6 per row and 6 rows. It gives me about an 88-inch quilt. You can add more or you can just keep it that size. I've taken each of those squares and I've sewn them to no pattern at all. I've just mixed them up as I've sewn them together. So that's going to give me that comfortable sort of random feeling. And that's what I want. I want it to have that comfortable sort of sweater feeling. Something that'll be perfect cuddling up in the evenings. Now you can quilt this just like a normal quilt. You can put a quilt batting in it and a backing and have it quilted. You can also just put a flannel on the back and quilt it with just that one piece of flannel. You can also add a piece of flannel inside so that you are having 3 layers of flannel. That gives you a little bit of a heavier quilt, but you still don't have that quilt batting inside. I'm going to make this a lighter quilt by just adding 1 piece of flannel on the back. So there's going to be no batting inside. And I'm going to quilt it really well with an all-over pattern. You can quilt it with a walking foot. And any way you're going to do it, the whole key is going to be basting those layers together really well so you don't have any shifting. And because I washed the fabric in the front first, I will be washing my back fabric. I'll put a link in the description to the free pattern. I'll also put a link in the description to this free handout on tips and tricks on sewing with flannel. It's also from Marcus. So this has been a very easy pattern. The pieces were big, so it went together very, very quickly. And the more it's going to be washed, the more it's going to have that comfy, cozy feeling. Perfect for a cottage or sitting around a nice fire. I do hope you give it a try. It's a fun project and it works up really fast. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.